Greetings, I'm Dr. Ketsia Alert Sadler, founder of College Cafe, and your moderator for the College Planning with NAAHP webinar series. The National Alliance for the Advancement of Haitian Professionals and College Cafe welcome you to 2024. Hope it has been a great start for you, and we're looking forward to being part of your college planning search and everything that goes along with it. So today you'll have the opportunity to view some of the webinars from 2023's series. If you weren't able to join us, or if you joined and had to leave the broadcast earlier, here's your chance to watch them again. We had some amazing topics. We first talked about the college visit with Miss Vanessa Deverix from Montclair State University, and we had Dr. Gaetan Jean-Marie from Rowan University. And then we talked about running to pay for college, looking at all you athletes in the track and field realm. And so we had Coach John Prescott, Coach Cherie Ware Powell, who's an award-winning coach at Felician University, and also Miss Michelle Neal. Then we moved on to a topic that's really interesting for parents, the actual parents' involvement in the college application process, and parents have to understand. We had two moms who went through the process with their children. The first mom is Philippa Sutherland, and our other parent is Miss Shanta Campbell, and their children are doing well at Drew University and Hampton University. And finally, we ended this year with looking at careers in music in the key of life. And our guests on that episode were Miss Jasmine Young from the Howard University, Dr. Gary Hollander, band director from Dwight Morrow High School in Englewood, New Jersey, and we had Armand David Sadler, hip-hop reporter for Vibe magazine. So if you missed any of these episodes, we hope you will join us. Grab your popcorn, your favorite drink, and get ready to learn some things in order to fulfill your dreams of whatever your career choice will be. We look forward to working with you in 2024. Take care. Bye-bye. Greetings all, and welcome to College Planning with the National Alliance for the Advancement of Haitian Professionals. I'm Dr. Ketsia Alert Sadler, founder of College Cafe and your moderator for this webinar series. We're so excited that you've joined us this evening, and you're in for a treat because tonight is part 2 of the webinar series from the topic of last month, which is parents have to understand the college process. It was so amazing. After we went off camera, conversation kept rolling, and we said, we can't be selfish and keep it to ourselves. So we want to share it with the rest of the world and, especially NAHP's following. But first, before we get started, we want to thank NAHP, who is our main partner. And also we have Parent Matters, Golden V, and College Cafe. Without them, we would not be able to bring you all this amazing information. So as I said, this evening is continuing with the topic that we started last month. And of course, our 2 phenomenal guests are here. We have first Miss Philippa Sutherland, who, as I said last week, is an educator in the Englewood Public School District. Her bachelor's degree is from Fairleigh Dickinson University in, hold on, I gotta make this bigger to read, Fairleigh Dickinson University with an international business emphasis. And then she got her master's from Montclair State University in educational leadership. And her pride and joy is young Graylin, who is a freshman at Drew University. So she'll be sharing a little bit about Graylin and his process getting into that school. And our other guest is Miss Shanta Campbell, who is the yin to the yang of Miss Sutherland's academics, because Miss Campbell got her bachelor's in sociology from Montclair State University, and then went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, where she obtained her master's degree in administrative science. She's been employed by the state of New Jersey for the past 22 years as a senior probation officer. And her pride and joy is her daughter, Ariana, who is
at Hampton University, and she is headed down to homecoming. So any of you parents who've got kids in college right now at the HBCUs, I know this is the big time of homecoming. So hopefully you've had a chance to go down and see your child and spend some time with him or her. And I guarantee you, you will not recognize that child because he or she will have matured so much. It's amazing how when they spread their wings and fly just a little bit away from us, how much our children become these more mature adults. You're like, oh my gosh, that's my child. But anyway, now we're talking to you parents who've got high school seniors or students in high school who are looking to do the college process or going on to trade school, because we want to make sure that you understand that whatever your career choice is, there is support for it. Parents have to be involved in it in order to make sure that it's an affordable process. So before we start, we want to cover some of the topics from last week. If you missed from last month, if you were not here with us, we're going to talk about some of the major points that we had and allow Ms. Sutherland and Ms. Campbell to give us some additional insights that they may not have shared before. So just give me 1 second. Okay, and here we are. So ladies, take a look at what we have there. I know it's items that we talked about. And so if there's anything that you want to add on for the families, please feel free to jump in and whichever topic speaks to you to share the information regarding it.
I can't even see that. I'm squinting my eyes right now. It comes with age. So I'm gonna just feed off of Miss Sutherland.
So
And,
I'll read it off
and
for you.
you.
About early exposure to college. We talked about going on moving days with family and friends, going to open houses and tours, and the difference between open houses and a tour, having the relationship with your guidance counselor to ensure that that your student talks to the guidance counselor, make sure that they are on board with what your plans are, because especially when it comes time to writing letters of recommendation, it's important that the counselor knows your student and can really write a personal letter as opposed to something generic. We also mentioned support from family. Like Ms. Sutherland was talking about how some of her cousins will read over what Graylin has written, or with the checklist, the Excel spreadsheet, making sure that he's done certain things. And then having a group of parents who are like-minded with their kids going through the process to ensure that they're on task, or if you have to miss a meeting, that person can provide you with information. We talked about parents, of course, have to advocate for their children. Shanta, you spoke about how your daughter wasn't initially applying for National Honor Society and how at first she wasn't accepted, and you had to have a conversation with the advisor and rework the application. Organization was a big part of it, because we have to ensure that we know when we're visiting schools, what deadlines are for applications and test scores, things like that. Family finances also was a big topic, because the reality is, what can our family afford for school, and how is my child going to get the best education for the least amount of money? And we talked about how a full ride at one school may not be the best fit for your child. So how do you find the school where your child will thrive and have it be affordable? In addition, we talked about checking emails, making sure that there's a family email for checking the information, because schools, everything now is via email. Snail mail does not exist anymore. And test prep, SAT versus ACT, scores are needed for a merit scholarship. So when we talk about the test optional, it's not really that great of an option, because it limits you from getting scholarships from the schools. And then a last point that came up was talking about Khan Academy and College Board, and how students can use those two resources to study, whether it's for their academic courses or for the standardized tests. So those were some of the highlights that I pulled out. But again, ladies, feel free to throw in anything related to those that we may have information we have missed in sharing with the families.
I think one thing we could add in there is possibly the essay writing and through the application process, how strenuous that can be. So making timelines or guide to that completion, I think is very important because that's where the children feel more pressure because they have their schoolwork and in these applications that they have to fill out become a little overwhelming for them.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That was definitely a big thing for Ariana when it came to writing essays. At one point, I found that she was trying to, as she was sorting through her college applications and stuff like that, she was actually trying to look for colleges that where she did not have to write essays or if, and I'm like, oh, hold on now, what you doing? So she's like, she was just so burnt out. She didn't want to write any more essays. The essays were too long. It took up too much time. And it can be very overwhelming. It most definitely can, because you have to write so many essays. She was writing essays for scholarships. The colleges wanted essays. And I said, no, we can't do this.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. It's a part of the process. So what we can try to do, let's think smarter, not harder. Let's see if we can find colleges where there are essays that could be kind of similar, that maybe you could use the same essay for another college. Maybe we could just tweak it a little bit. We can do that, but we're not going to skip over colleges just because you don't want to write an essay. It's a part of the process. So I did find I would advise to just make sure they're not applying to certain colleges just because there's an essay, because they don't want to write an essay. It's a part of the process.
Mm-hmm. And I've always echoed, as far as the scholarships also, is that sometimes you can reuse the same essay and just tweak the beginning or the ending or whatever. But the thing with this generation that has computers where you can just cut and paste things, you just have to be careful that if you're writing an essay for Hampton, that you're not putting Howard in the essay. Back in our time, we had typewriters. So if you messed up, you had to rewrite the whole page again if you if you weren't able to erase with your typewriter, or if you missed the margin, you have to do it all over again. So that's a skill our kids have to have. And as Ms. Sutherland said, proofreading, have different people the essay over for you, because your eyes will miss things if you're trying to read it yourself.
Yeah. As you were talking, Ms. Campbell, I thought, I said, I found that I was frustrated with the requirements that so many schools had. And, as within any business, there's gatekeepers and gate doors that has to be open. And if you really want to put an application in for a review, you have to wonder what they need to see from you to be able to make you a candidate. So it goes back to, that list of interests that you really want, and what schools would provide that for you, and what would they require of you to be able to be a candidate in their school, as well as a candidate for you and your needs. So I think when they look at those colleges that they have these high ideals for, they really need to look at what does that school provides and offers, and what do I need to do to be able to enter. And having a frank conversation with themselves is like, is that something that I need or want? And not just because it's too much. I heard that a lot from Grayling, and it was just like, okay, but if this was your school of desire, it's on this list, we can't eliminate it just because it actually for 4 essays. And then you wonder, why are they? Then we had some good conversations, like, is it worth putting that effort in, knowing where your goals are, what are they offering, what's the likelihood of you getting into that school? Then we decided, like, the possibilities that you work so hard on it, and you're not even meeting the requirements. So it was a other way for him to also reflect on where he is as a student, and deciding if that was something that he wanted to put effort in. So it's a great conversation that has to happen.
Right. And to add on to that, I would often explain to her, you're not the only student with good grades that's applying for this college. What sets you apart from the other students? You have to give them something to look at. Something has to set you guys apart some type of way. So you got to go a different direction. You're not the only one with A's. You're not the only one with B's. You're not the only one on the honor society. You're not the only one on this society. You're not the only one in this club. So what sets you apart from the next candidate who has the same grades and the same GPA that you have? You have to go a little bit further and give them something more to make them want to look at you, to give you that extra point than the person, because it's numbers.
Right.
No matter how you look at it, it's still numbers.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, that essay. I was at a workshop last night, and the person was saying how your essay should not talk about your grades and your test scores. They already have that. So your essay needs to be something, and like at one of the workshops during the summer webinars, the essay coaches were saying that first sentence has to be, it's got to stand out. It has to grab them. Yes, has to grab their attention so that they want to continue reading. One piece of information, parents, is that sometimes the admission staff really don't have that much time to read an application. So if that first sentence starts out, and they said, like, especially with our kids that went in and were in school during COVID, they said if they read one more essay about COVID, so if your essay started about when I was on lockdown during COVID, they were not going to read your essay. So you had to find some other way to grab their attention and then bring you into it. And as Ms. Campbell said, what's going to set you apart from the other 2,500 students who are applying for this school? Yes, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game, and it's a strategy of how do I put myself on paper? Because especially if the schools don't have interviews, if they don't offer your child the opportunity to meet someone in person, face to face, the essay is it. That's the only personable piece of information they have. So you have to make sure that is on point. And then on the topic of that, now we're in the world of Chat GPT and AI and stuff. Any parents out there, I know it's probably sounding very easy to just say, oh, I'll just use Chat GPT to help my child write the essay or whatever. Not a good idea. Not a good idea at all, because that's going to, it's not personal. And the essays, the admissions people, they can tell if an essay was written by artificial intelligence versus a human being. So again, you got to go back to the basics and write yourself, do it yourself, because if you do get an opportunity to be interviewed, you can talk about it. You know what you wrote. So thank you, ladies, for bringing up the essay topic. Anything else that jumps out from this that we can discuss? Finances, advocating, being organized, family email. Did you all set up a separate family email for your daughters, or did you just have them forward their emails to you?
Well, I just have the password to Ariana's. Just give me the password so I could just go into it and just take out what I need. Because I told her, time out for that being in my business. You don't have no business right now. You don't have no business until I finish paying for tuition.
Amen. Yes.
But I'm not interested in no type of anything personal. I just want to know what's going on with Hampton so I don't miss any deadlines and you don't miss any deadlines. Yes. So I pretty much just have the password to her email.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I would say when we started the application process, I did have him create a separate Gmail account so that he would receive those emails. But because Naviance is through the school program, it is tied to their school email. So that became a problem because I allowed him to have the freedom to dictate. I said, I'm not going to be in school with you, so check your email. So I will do that constantly, like, have you gone through, have you looked for these things? And then you will see, he noticed like there was spam and then all these, schools interested in you and what they wanted you to do. So I said, you have to learn to weed out what's important and sort through, because that's a life skill you're going to get, especially when you go to business. Mm-hmm. the challenge came through Naviance when certain things had to be sent to them. So it was then for him to stay on top of the school email as well. So I use it more of a teachable moment in my house at that moment. It's like, you're going to have to balance it. And then eventually, when I wasn't hearing certain things or seeing things, I was like, give me the computer. Let me show you how you sort. This is how we filter. No, we don't need this. Chuck all of these. So you need to start deleting things. So I started, like, had him watch me go through his thing. And then eventually I was like, there you go. So I think it's depend on the child. You have to know your child and what you their strengths and weaknesses are. I would definitely say have an independent email away from the school, so that if when school is finished, which happens, that email was closed. So I had to remind him to go back in there and take out things that he might wanted. So maybe there's an essay that he added somewhere. If it wasn't on the Google Drive, just go and access that. Or you had a letter of recommendation that you could have, or anything that could have, that could be something you should keep for as a keepsake. I had to have him go back in and cultivate it for himself. So I think it is important to do both in some form of, to be informed, to be aware, and then also figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, ladies, if there is nothing else on this slide, we will start on today's topics of discussion, which I can't wait to hear. All right. So, okay. So we started having a really interesting conversation when the broadcast ended last month, regarding on-site admissions and college fairs. So let's talk about when you went to college fairs, let's say initially with your daughters, with your children, and then when they got an admission and were admitted to a school at a college fair, what happened? Because I remember there was conversation about scholarship information and what you did. So we can segue at another point into what you did if you needed more scholarship money from an on-site admission. So,
okay. So I think what's interesting, because as much as we don't want to beat around COVID, their experience was very unique, because his batch, or that year, senior year, was the first time they were bringing them back. So not a lot of schools participated in different fairs that he was invited to, or was we were able to find. I think the first one we went to was in Ramapo College, and it was a auditorium or a gym, actually, full of different schools. And walking in, coming out of being sheltered in place for such a long time, to see that crowd was overwhelming. So I think what happened was, for us, he had to understand what a college fair was about, what's its purposes, and how you stand apart, and what do you need to do. And I didn't think of having that conversation until we were there, and I had to keep nudging, speak louder, they can't hear you. Shake hands, make eye contact, enunciate or pronounce your words clearly so that they can hear, and have your speech ready down pat. Like, how do you introduce yourself? What do you know about the school? How do you ask them questions that you want to know? So in the midst of us moving from booth to booth, I was in his ear, that was okay, but next time do this, or good job, I like how you went about that. So it's an etiquette. And it really, and it wasn't until the second one I recognized that, we need to have a conversation about how you really come to, in front of them. You have not even a 5-minute window to make an impression. And I think that created a lot of angst for him, because he didn't think of I had to do anything different. And then we went to a few. And the first one, he actually went in his Bergen Catholic uniform, and whoa, did he not get a lot of eyes, and hi, and people came up to him and say, why BC? And they were, the connections that I said. I was like, see, that money opened the door. It's good. Let's keep using that. But after a while, this doesn't do anything. You have to stand apart. You have to make yourself known. You have to have your folder ready. What should you have in your folder? What information do you need to do? So then that became his priority. Mommy, I need my transcripts copied. Can you get it in color for me? Or Mom, do I need to bring, do they need on it? Because sometimes they will tell you things that you need to bring. For example, the Black College Expo that happened in September, and all parents, if you hear that one, that get on board. That's directly an insight into HBCUs. And he went in, and in 2 minutes, he got his first acceptance for college, and they were telling him full ride, and he walked away just, he was just, I mean, he was jumping after that. And then some reality checks when he saw some competition, and I was like, yeah, what do you bring to the table? So I think you do need to have a conversation about what does a college fair do? What's the purpose? How do you make connects? And then I would also say the follow-up. That was the part that I think I could have done better. You got these business cards. How do you go back and say, thank you for your time? How do you keep your name in their mouth, right? So you gave your transcript, but guess what? They got a folder this thick of everyone's. When they go through it, would they go back through it? Have they already cultivated the ones that they are going to call versus the ones that, oh, thank you, but that's going in the garbage? So I would definitely say it's an art that has to be discussed. It has to be prepared for, so that when you walk in, you're using it to gather the information you need. There's more to that I will say, but I'll start there with that. So Ms. Campbell, to you.
Basically, we did pretty much the same thing. Like when we were preparing to attend the college fairs, the first one we went to was in New York, and it was a HBCU college fair. And that was when she got her first acceptance on the spot and the scholarship as well for one of the colleges. And she was like so surprised from that as well. But to prepare her, of course, we sat home, and she knows me. I'm going to drill her to a T. Okay, let me see how you're going to approach these people. Let me see what you're going to say. This is what you're going to say. But I also had her transcripts copied for her. I had them in color. I had a whole folder. What I also did, which I thought was very unique, and it really came in handy. A lot of the schools were very impressed by this because they didn't have a lot of students to do this. I had cards made 5x7. It had her picture on it, and it had everything about her on it. It had her GPA on it. It had her SAT scores on it. It had that she was a trained dancer. It had on there that she was a part of the cheerleading team. It had on there that she was a part of the track team. It had on there all of the clubs that she was in. It had on there her National Honor Society, Social Studies Honor Society, Math Honor Society. So it had all of those key things on it. So when you look at it, then it was very beautiful. And the school that she attends looked like one of those castles, one of those things out of a Harry Potter movie. So we had that in the background, and then her picture was on front, a nice little picture of her, and it just had all these bullet points. It had her email address, it had her phone number, and it just had everything on there. And so when you greet them, this is the first thing that you give to them. So that made her stand out. I think I was just trying to think, because everyone was going to come with their transcript. Okay, let's go a little bit further. Like you said, Ms. Sutherland, let's go a little further. Let's do something that's going to make you stand out a little bit, because everybody's going to be standing in that line in front of that school wanting the same thing that you want. Mm-hmm. So let's do something that's going to make you stand out a little more. So we created the 5x7, and they were on hard stop, the cards. And they were really impressed by that. So it was just little things like that, just prepping her, just trying to think one step above anybody else. It could have been other people there that had the same thing, but I didn't see it. And when they saw hers, they were impressed by it. So it's just thinking a step above. What else could you do to make your kids stand out? And then, asking questions, because like I said, one of the schools had given her a scholarship, but I wanted her to get the full thing. So when they looked at her transcript, they just said the SATs, actually, not the transcript, the SAT scores, because we had that as well. If she just brought it up a little bit higher, we spoke about this last month. If she brought it up this many points higher, she can get the full thing. That's when we got the tutor, even though she had already taken the SATs, but it was worth spending that additional $95 for her to take it again. And it was worth spending that extra money that the tutor needed to take that SAT again, because it saved us so much money in the end, just raising her SAT scores. Whether his fee, whether his fee was $100 an hour or $200 an hour, guess what? We paid it, because in the end, it was worth it. Mm-hmm. Just sitting with him for those 2 weeks, it brought her SAT scores up higher, and she was able to get that full scholarship. So thank God for that. So if you have to invest in your children, invest in them. We could buy them a brand new pair of sneakers that cost $100 and $200. So why not do this right here? Mm-hmm. Spend that money on a tutor to try to get that scholarship. But you have to ask questions. You don't just go in there and give them stuff and expect them to say yay or nay. You, as the parent and also teacher, scholar, that they have to ask questions as well. I've always taught Ariana that ask questions. Don't just take this for an answer. Ask them questions, because most kids would have said, oh, okay, well, they take the scholarship. This is a scholarship you're giving them. They're happy. And then they move on because they figure they got a scholarship. No, I have another question. How do I get more money from you? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do I have to do to get more money from you, or even bigger scholarship? Right. Where do I look for that? What do I have to do? And that's the thing that I teach her to do. Never just settle for that one response. Go further than that. Take it a step further. Mm-hmm. So that would be definitely one of my advices, just like Ms. Sutherland. Know what you're going in there, know what you're going to say, know what you're going to present, and ask questions. Do not be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah. And I really like that, using that 5x7 card, because, that admissions person at a college fair, they're seeing hundreds of students. So after a while, that paper, what was her name? Shanta Campbell, or was it Sarita Mick Campbell? The names kind of flow. You can't remember what the person looks like, but Ariana Campbell with a picture, you can't forget it. So definitely, parents out there, so that's a good tip for these college fairs. And yes, the one in New York, that expo, I think that one happened already in September, but upcoming in November is the Malcolm Bernard HBCU fair. So if there's parents who are in Manhattan, I think the first session is November 11th in Manhattan, and then throughout New Jersey. If you don't know what it is, basically it's a nonprofit that actually takes about, I don't even know how many HBCU reps. Well, let's throw out 25, but it's definitely more than that. And they house them. So for a week, they do the tour of New York and New Jersey. They're going to be at Kane University. I think they're going to be down in Mercer County. So wherever you are between New York and New Jersey, you want to be there, because again, your child will have an opportunity to get an on-site admission. And it's so much empowering and gives the kids so much more confidence to know in October of your senior year that I know where I'm going. It may not be in my top 3 schools, but next August, I'm going somewhere. So right. it really flips the dynamic and the mentality of the schoolwork and everything, because now you can walk around school feeling excited because you've done something. So it gives you a little push for some students to say, well, what other schools will accept me now? And then when it comes time in April, now when you have acceptances, you can play that comparison game with the admissions. And to say, well, I want to go here, but they're giving me more money. And you can play that appeals game to get more funding for yourself, for your education. So definitely good point. Definitely good point. Ms. Sutherland, did Graylin do any test prep or anything as far as getting additional scholarships?
So our Bergen Catholic did provide after school test prep that I did at a cost, which he did participate in. He also, what was the other thing he did? We also provide him like the resources that he wanted. So he was more an advocate for the ACT than the SAT. And we battled back and forth why we should do both, and he didn't. And I just said, there's much debate. And speaking to various counselors that we had access to at the time, again, that year was very unique because now things were sort of beginning to go back. So he rationalized that if he spent more effort in the test that he was comfortable in, which happens to be the ACT, then he would be able to turnkey out a better score than trying to balance both. And that was just him. And I as you know, when we were 18, we had to do what we're told, and we were also encouraged to do both. So it was a hard stop for me to be able to just allow him to make that decision. I was thankful that majority of the schools that he did apply to were test optional. And what we made sure is we did follow up. Is it test optional in addition to merit based? And when they said they used the essay to determine, or an interview to help with that, then I felt more comfortable if we had to share, because he still took the ACT. So then if he wanted to, then he would share his scores or not. So he played a little bit more safer to home when he did those things. And I had to recognize, and this is one of the parts that I spoke about last month, is knowing your child and what you can encourage and push. And call it the educator in me and the mom, the mesh of the two, I would have to push back and like, they want to see this, they want you to do this, but then looking at him and noticing the burden that it was was creating for him. So I had to, be flexible and allow him to make those adult decisions that he wanted. And I'm thankful that it panned out. So the support came through the school, some independent things that he did on his own, and then through Junior Jumpstart, our Parent Matters, we also got the support through the program as well, where someone came and spoke with him and guided him with the application process, as well as what to do regarding the ACT. The last thing we did do was College Board had lots of free webinars. So I would, they would send both of us an email, and we'll just trade back. What do you think about this one? And then he would sign up and sit through and listen or participate. So in a way, I kind of allowed him to have a diverse way of gathering the information, and then did like the old school. You grab your book, you sat down, and you put your timer on, and you had to practice, and then come and talk to me about what you did and what you think you needed to work on. What supports did you need, and who can I reach out to give you those things? And again, all of that was possible because I allowed us to have a conversation about each step of the way, and I did not dictate. He wasn't going to accept me dictating it, and I didn't want that, because I needed him to be able to make decisions that I know later on would be really his on his own, that I was preparing him for and preparing myself for. So in this way, it was like a training process. Like, what am I going to fight for? What am I going to demand? And then what do I need to just release to him?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely the process. It's a family affair, but you have to know your child and know when there's certain times when you're not taking no for an answer. And then sometimes you're like, okay, I can let that go and let them take the lead on this topic. Because if you don't, then you don't end up with the results that you need. You have a child who is annoyed and angry and isn't able to be productive in doing what he or she needs to do. So to the parents out there listening, there's a lot of sometimes family dynamics that has to change as you start going through this process, because, when the kids are little, we can tell them what to do. And then when all of a sudden this college process comes in, they think they know where they want to go, and they think they know everything that they should do, and they really don't. So those conversations come into play to see, okay, where is it that I need to be steadfast and no, you have to do this, or maybe this thing I'll let it slide a little bit. So
yeah, you don't want a child that is resentful,
right.
And I've heard of seen, and then another part that I would encourage is, as a mom, a few other parents, we kind of gravitated and made our own parent chat to support ourselves. So we'll do check-ins, and one of the biggest thing was how each and every child in our group reacted to different things at different ways. Some were very proactive, others were very hands-off, and then others like, I didn't even know that was happening. So we would be in the back like, did you talk to your friend? You need to go talk to your friend. And then it was, so in a way, it kept us informed. And then we recognized that, yeah, they're all kind of lulu and crazy. And then we'll sit there and hash about what we were seeing that wasn't working with ours, and then take feedback. So I think that's also important, is knowing that you as a mom might need a support team outside of family, but or whoever you think it might be, to help you to navigate. Because what we did 20 some odd years ago is completely different than now, and the way the children are expected to do certain things required us to be more abreast of it. So I think that was it was a very interesting time, to say the least.
Just to piggyback off of Ms. Sutherland, the same thing, I definitely agree with that. And I will be transparent. I had to learn the hard way with Ariana, because I should know how she is. Ariana is very hands-on and does a lot of things herself. But me knowing the process and having gone through the process already, like you said, that was so many years ago, but I still know the process. So when it came time for her, it was like, okay, we got to do this. We have to do this and we have to do that. And she's like, Mom, no, I'm going to do it this way. So we had a lot of pulling and tugging in the beginning. And at one point, I remember resulting to tears, because I'm just like telling her, like, you just don't listen, and I'm trying to help you, and you're going to mess this up, and this is not going to happen. And she's like, Mom, I have this. I'm going to do it my way. So I actually had to just sit back, breathe, pray about it, and say, okay, I have to believe that she has this under control, and she's going to do it her way, because I'm trying to do it my way, because I've been through this process already. So I know what I'm talking about. That was my thing. And I had to believe that she knew what she was doing, because she's very hands-on. And I just had to sit back and just let her handle it. And she actually did. I was like, then I saw, oh, okay, so you do have this. So, at this point, I'm drying my tears and I'm feeling a little bit more confident about what she's doing, but she had to do it her way. And I had to stop trying to drive into her my way of doing things, because the generation nowadays, they do things totally different. Even in the way that they're learning, the math that they're learning today, honey. And there is no way. Just give me 1 + 1 and 2 + 2, because the things and how they're learning it, I'm like, we didn't learn it like that. Absolutely. Make 5 sticks and put a cross through the 5 for number 6. But the strategy on how they learn totally blows my mind. So they have their way of doing things, this new age, and sometimes we just have to let them be. We just have to keep paying attention, just if we see them slacking, just to motivate them. And just sometimes you got to nudge them a little bit, push them a little bit, but just let them take the lead, because when they get into school, they have to take the lead. Mm-hmm. And I tell her all the time, I say, usually if I see, I'm always on top of her grades when she was in high school and middle school. And if I saw something slipping, I was always emailing or calling a teacher. Okay, well, what can we do to bring this grade up? Well, it's a B. Let's try to bring it to an A. What does she need to do? I told her, I can't do that in college anymore. That's all up to you. So we have to teach them how to how to do things in a way. You have to talk to the college professor now when you have a problem. And actually, we had a situation like that just recently. And she called me and she was so upset. I said, just calm down. You know how I do this. Calm down. Always send an email so you have your proof. Always send an email to the professor first, and then you set up a time and ask when can you come in to talk to her. It was about changing the class. Well, so about a test that they took, and something about she had to upload something, but she uploaded it, but the teacher couldn't find it. It's a long story. But I said, you have to go in and you have to talk to the teacher. And if the teacher still doesn't accept it, then guess what? She just doesn't accept it. So then you say, okay, I understand. Okay, what else can I do to blah, blah, blah. And then you have to move on. But you have to learn how to do things on your own, because I'm not going to be there to do it for you. And it's not like you can say, well, my mom is going to call you. So I had to teach her you got to teach them how to handle things. Let them handle it on their own. And you have to start before they enter college.
Right.
Start before they enter college, because you don't have a trial period in college.
Yeah.
Not at all. From day one, it's all on you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's talk also, we talked about the on-site admissions. If you can comment, both of you ladies, on the actual application submission process, like when do you remember them submitting the first application and then the last one, and how much push did you have to provide as far as saying, okay, this application's due January 1st or whatever, how much have you done with it? So how involved were you in that process with the application submission?
So I feel like it was a blur. It came, we were like, okay, ready. And then what happened? You said that one? So Naviance, again, is it, I'm not sure if all schools use that program, but Bergen Catholic had that set up. They had a whole system for them. They enrolled them in it and then started the common application through it. So because they led through it, started it, by the time I started hearing this word, I was like, well, what do you do? And then he was like, oh, they just, they just tell you, and he would give me some vague answer. And I'm like, I don't think so. And then they will have parent nights. And then I'm like, it sounds like it's a little bit more. Give me the computer. So it's through his school. So I had to just kind of see it for myself. And then when we knew the Common App open, I was like, what you mean you got a number? So then I had to get a book. I said, everything you put down, a code, a password, let's put it here so that you don't forget it and we can go back to it. And then if you need to refer to something, here it is. Mm-hmm. So I think what happened is you have to know what your school process is. How much does the school support, and then where you come in to guide or to just monitor. And I thought we were going to do it independently, like we did back in the day. But then again, we had to open go get the application from the guidance counselor office, sit there with your pen, and darn, I need another one because that was wrong. And then go get the computer, type the essay, put it in the envelope. Like that wasn't happening. So the Common App, I must say, tied in with the Naviance, made that part easier. So when he now selected the umpteenth schools that he wanted, what I then did, there's a checklist that I went back through with him. Show me what you need. What does the school require? What supplemental essays do they need? What scores do they need? How do we write your curricular activities, extracurricular activities? That was important because he's from a smaller school, so they don't have that much. Well, you did this and you did some extra. So how do we talk that up to make sure it's, you really get acknowledged for your effort? So I think what it is, you have to know what the school provides. How do they support them with the common application, if they do or do not, and then you kind of take lead from there. For me, it became a supportive thing, and I just monitored to make sure that he did it. And then when he had to submit, Then I sat there. So then I said, okay, let's go through, because most of these schools have supplemental essays. There's the generic one that the Common App has, but then the school has 3 or 4. And again, that's when you have to think about it. No, we're not going to not pick the school now, which you were singing praises for. We knew this was coming. It was in the flyer that, and be prepared for, literally, I had 2 big grocery bags of schools, interest flyers, everything you could think of that came in. I had 2 big bags and plus more of interest. And what happened is like, well, what did they say they need? I was like, stop. Let's go look back at Naviance. Let's look back at Common App, and then just see what we needed to do. And then one of the trick was we looked at the spreadsheet that we created, and then he started to jot down the supplemental questions that they had. So then we said, oh, look, these are similar. So here we go. This essay could match here. We just need to tweak this, and that. And then we started to play that game. Who's the common, who's different, and what else do you need? And then we had the Google Docs going. This is essay 1. This topic, it has this overarching topic in it. And then it was literally play, match, and twist. Here we go. This go to this one, and let's rewrite that one again. It didn't answer the question quite clearly. Even though it may sound similar, we still need to make sure you're answering the question. So it literally felt like I was the secretary and I was in the back going, okay, today is, and he made a deadline. He wanted to apply everything by early action. I'm sorry. He wanted to make early actions. So because of that, everything, like I would say 95% of the schools he applied to were applied by October 15th. And that took off a burden off of us, but we had to get there. And then other schools that he wanted, then we kind of put in. But the trick to that, the earlier you get it in, the more your name gets in front of that money. And then you get to see which one you get, you're more qualified for, because now, applications are coming in. They're looking at already the pools that they needed. So it was a complex scenario, but it felt like we had 3 heads going. He had one, and then I was in the back going, do what I need you to do. But the spreadsheet kept us accountable, and just monitoring what their school was telling them to do, him informing me, and then us checking it to make sure it went in correctly. And with those deadlines that we kept track of on our spreadsheet.
Got it.
Right. We definitely created a spreadsheet as well to try to keep things in order. Ariana had her own spreadsheet, and I definitely had to have my own notebook. I had to have my own separate notes so I can understand it the way that I need to understand it, because she's different from me. And then, of course, for the Common App, I love it because that actually keeps things in order for you as well. When you basically pick your schools, because with the Common App, you have to pick, you have to go in order of the school that you're interested in the most. Mm-hmm. And you have to go in order that way. But definitely creating that spreadsheet and writing things down to see, okay, what deadline is coming? What's the next deadline? Okay, so that's the school we'll do now. I would definitely have to say during that process of putting in applications from the beginning to the end, that was the hardest part of this entire process for me, because I had to push her so much. I really had to motivate her, because I think with the essays, she was just burnt out. She didn't want to do them. This essay is 750 words. This essay is 250 words. So of course, which one I'm going to choose? The one for 250. So I'm like, no, we still have to do this other one, because I think this school is a good school. So, we're arguing backwards and forth with this stuff. So it was, also doing a process of elimination when it comes down to tuition, how much the school is, not knowing if she was going to get a scholarship or not. And this is what we would have to pay, because I already know you're not going to get the financial aid. This school is a little bit too much. Okay, we have to X this one out. Process of elimination works. it just was a lot of different things. But the one thing that I will also say when it comes to those schools that we did not know is that there's additional work that you have to do with the schools in order for them to download the SAT. So we thought in the beginning, just submitting the application for the school, we're done. But no, we weren't done. It's certain things you have to do to make sure that the school gets the SAT.
Mm-hmm.
Also the transcript, also the letters from the teacher. So just submitting that application, that's only a small portion of submitting that college application. The other things that you have to do, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know that at first. And if you go into the Common App, it's very organized where you could look on the certain part of it. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. There's a certain part, if you go to the college, you can see exactly what that school have downloaded for you already. So if they have not downloaded your transcript, you can look and see that school have not downloaded your transcript. If they have not received the letters from your teachers yet, you could also see that they have not received your reference letters. You can see that they have not received your SAT scores. So that's what I love so much about the Common App. So I think that part right there is very important for people to realize that submitting the actual application is just a small part of it. You have to make sure that the schools have uploaded your SAT scores, your transcripts, all of that stuff. And that Common App, there's a certain part of it that you go into, you can see exactly what the school has downloaded. And don't be afraid to contact the school to find out, is it something that you need to do more on your part, where other information that they need. And actually it was on one of the schools. I kept saying, well, why haven't they downloaded, I don't know if it was the SAT scores or her transcript, and it was something that we had to go in there to do. Something was incorrect on the document that we had to fix in order for them to download it. So just be cautious of problems that may occur. Contact the schools. Just because you haven't submitted the application and that they're not accepted there yet, you can still contact the schools to make sure that they have all of the correct information that they need to consider your scholar.
Mm-hmm. Nope, definitely good points. Of course, that communication with the school starts early,
Mm-hmm.
Again, putting your child's name in the admissions person's ear. With my boys, they did the college application process, the oldest in 2008 and then the younger one in 2012. So yes, we were not friends. We were just battling, but they both submitted their applications by the middle of November. We didn't even do early action. I was like, just get them in. Once November 1st was over with early decision people, everything got submitted so you could enjoy the holidays. And I wasn't, especially with the old one, not as savvy with how the scholarship piece ran. So I'm like, okay, now we'll do scholarships and stuff. So, but yeah, so kind of had to be on top of them to get them done.
And we didn't do early. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that with my younger one, I definitely feel that that's how he got into Cornell, by getting his application in by November. They had 40,000 applicants for 6,000 spots.
Wow.
Once they were done with early decision people, you got your stuff in early and you were a good candidate on paper. He was a scholar, athlete, National Honor Society, all that community service. So definitely. Yes.
That was the one thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to get her information in, like early decision or early admissions and stuff like that. But she would not do that. She did not want to do that. So when I tell you it was some colleges, we were down. If the application had to be in on December 2nd, we were up on December 1st at 11:55 p.m. still making changes because she was just procrastinating so much. And I'm yelling in the background, I told you, we can't wait till the last minute. She waited to the last minute for so many different things. And at first, a lot of it came from the fact that she didn't have the SAT score that she wanted to have. Mm-hmm. That's Ariana. If she wasn't happy, I'm not submitting the score. I want higher. So she took the SATs a couple times to keep getting higher scores. And she would not submit the SATs. And I kept telling her, you can still submit the college application, even though you have not had the SATs yet. You go back and submit the SATs. She did not want to listen to me. And it wasn't until later on, after the entire process was over, she realized my mom was right. I could have just submitted the application, because I told her, you want to be ahead. You want to be in that early pool, because like the saying goes, the early bird gets the worm.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so true. When you're in that early pool, you get more money. If you're at the bottom of the totem pole, you're just going to get the scraps.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I'm grateful, and I thank God for the fact that, you know, on based on her merit and everything she does, she got very good scholarships for all of the schools that she applied for. So I thank God for that, even though we did do them very late, no early decision. Like I said, we were submitting the day before they were due.
No.
And that I was biting my nails the entire time through this entire process. It drove me insane. It really did.
Yeah, I think we had, I guess, I would definitely say parents, you know, having a frank conversation about what this process is important. And I think sitting them down and being realistic, like, this is a partnership. This is not I. And that conversation happened with Graylin and I and my sister after touring Rutgers. And I'm going to be very honest. We sat for 2 hours across the street at Panera Bread. And my sister and I said, this is not mommy. This is not auntie. This is Philippa, Graylin, and Jeanette. You're having an adult conversation. Where do you see yourself at the end of senior year? And we talked about whose vision you're looking for. Is it mine or yours? And my sister laid it out. She said, I hear your mom more than you. I hear your mom talking to you, reminding you about certain things. And she just put a mirror right to his face. And then I parried it with, you know, what it is that I'm looking for from you. And then we stepped back and let him come in and talk about his fears and what his own desires were. And it was such an eye-opening conversation that I think it allowed us to get where we were throughout the year. Please understand, it was not all roses after that. But because he understood that it had to be both of us in tangent together working, when these decisions were being made, when we talked about why is early action, early decisions different than a regular admission, and then Bergen Catholic came in on the back end and talked to him about, you know, the numbers game and how they saw that they get more interest, right, based on what you put out. And they had, I mean, and again, this is where, you know, equity comes into play. They had admissions officers come to the school directly to talk to these young men. What a privilege that was. So he began to talk to me about like actual admissions officer's name. Mommy, I met so-and-so. He gave me his business card. I want to meet with him because he's track. So I want to talk to the coach and he's going to get me in to talk. And that connection helped him to build those relationships that he tapped into when we went to look for colleges. And I think, again, it goes back to us really sitting down and talking why it can't be a one-man show and why now our roles will switch every now and then. And then eventually you in the lead and mommy in the back cheerleading you on or being the secretary. This is what I need. So going back, and I'll just add to that, knowing your guide, what the school's support system is. What is the guidance office doing? Because there's some schools that are very detailed and organized, and they have connections to different colleges that you can use. And at times we did that. Go to your counselor, ask her if she knows so-and-so. Go and ask them if they can give you an update of why the application hasn't been accepted or reviewed or what else they need. And sometimes that worked because then he got an insight as to what he needed to fix. So making a partnership with your guidance counselor also is important. Then knowing the admissions officer for your school of interest, because that's what helped us to get Drew. She and I was on first name basis by the end of this. So now when I go to school, she sees me. Hi. We went to family day and she was like, who that? My mother was like, who is that? I was like, that's his admissions officer. And she's like, you know her? Yes, we do. Because when we had to appeal for a higher scholarship, she was right there with us. She knew his application. She knew his transcript. She knew where he was coming in, what kind of candidate. So when she went to bat for him, she knew why I was doing it and what we were needed. So I cultivated with him how you build relationships, how do you network, because that part, once the applications was in, it's your name got to keep ringing in somebody's ears. How do you do that? And that made it I think it started with us being, like I said, this is you. And then you have to advocate. And it kind of came full circle in different parts. Yes, were there moments that I just wanted to be like, okay, you know what? Put double up. And then other times I'm like, okay, that's my baby. Yes. And then other times it's just like, we don't know what we need to do, who we need to call. And then let's go call somebody. We needed help. And because of that, I think he was able to take from it how we build relationships among different people to get what you need. And that was very important for him and me as well.
Good. So one last question I'm going to ask is about the financial aid forms. Who did them? FAFSA, CSS profile, did you ladies do them, or did you have the child sitting being the primary person doing them and you guiding him or her, or how did that part work? Because I know that's important. That's a very important part of this process also.
We sat side by side. I didn't know, after going to how many different workshops, my notebook was filled with just financial aid information. And the sad thing, it's changed. So nothing I had from last year is going to look like this year. But what I did do, I sat him down and we looked at it, the paperwork together, and we looked at what information I had to put in. And then there was moments where he couldn't make sense of it, and then I had to explain and why this. The beauty of the and I hope they still do it, where you were your financial filings was, you could tack it in by putting in, I forgot, there was a code or something. You got your ID was verified, and it was that was intricate. You had to speak to someone to verify your identification, and then they took your filings and automatically added it to the FAFSA. That took a hell of a burden off of us. So filling it out became easier after we filled in the basic points, but knowing where your records are, and I forgot what the terminologies was, but there is a way that you can tag your filings directly to it. So it imports all the information on. And I think what then happened was it made it a lot easier for the data to be inputted. What I then had him do is, when you had to pick the schools, then I would show him, you got to click housing. You have to make sure you add this information. Then he went into Naviance to get their codes to make sure the code matches. So while I was inputting, or he was inputting, we were looking to make sure we wasn't sending schools the wrong information. When he decided, oh, mommy, I found a new school that I applied to, then listen, we got to go back into financial aid and add it. So that was a tab, a section in the spreadsheet. Did we add this to the list for financial aid? And then we had to hit yes or no. And then that was a way that we kept accountable, because you only could add 10 schools at a time. So then you had to go back, take something out. And at first I was like, no, leave your top 5 in there. Don't move that. And then I was like, well, they already got your information. And it became tricky, because you would need to know passwords, codes. So having a book with all these numbers, the different ID numbers, the different passwords is imperative. Don't leave it to be on a computer alone or in a Google Doc, because God forbid something disappears, you will cry. So we always had a notebook that we jotted down important numbers that he can access it back and forth, or myself. So it was a group project led by mommy, and then prayer. And then we were like, let's hope they bless you with a little something that can you can go. And other times I was like, this school is not gonna work right, but let's see. When we got it, I was like, you knew this was gonna happen, so draw a line through that one.
That FAFSA process was a nightmare. Because everything that I did, because I have a slight bit of OCD. So everything that I did, I wanted Ariana to be a part of the process, because this is your school. This is your education. This is your future. You're not going to have me sitting up here 1:00 in the morning, filling out applications and doing this paperwork while you in the bed getting your sleep. So you're going to sit right here next to me and you're going to see what I'm doing. And I'm going to sit here and watch you do your process. So whatever it was on the application that she could fill out, that I knew she could handle, I let her do that part. When it came time for me to do my part, then I did my part. But whatever part that she had to do, I let her do it. I wasn't going to do it for her, because I know that's what she wanted. But no, you're going to sit right here next to me and we're going to do this together. So that's what we did. And that, like you said, that part where you could only put 10 schools, and I'm like, that's all you can put? So I did not know until afterwards that you can go back. Remember what I said about that process of the Common App, you can see what the schools have downloaded. And if they have downloaded your FAFSA information, you can go back on the FAFSA, take that school out and add another school in. I didn't know that process. I just thought what the first 10, that would be it. But I had to go back, see what the schools have downloaded. Okay, now I can go back on FAFSA. I guess it was the process of going the backwards and forth that just had me going crazy. So I would go back into FAFSA. Okay, now let me take this school out. Let me add one of the other schools that I didn't have up there already. And that, I think that's when I learned about a school. That's how I learned about a school not downloading something for her. They were like, we haven't downloaded the FAFSA or anything else, because it was something with the FAFSA. And come to find out, they weren't on those first 10 schools. So being that they weren't a part of that 10 that I first put on the FAFSA, I had to go and add them on there so that they could download her information from the FAFSA. So once I learned you could go in and delete certain schools and just add the next group, then wait to see if they downloaded the stuff, then go back, delete them and put the other schools in, that worked out very well. But I didn't think, a lot of people kept saying, trust me, when you go to the FAFSA, it's going to be a nightmare. I didn't think completing FAFSA was the actual nightmare. I think that the nightmare for me was the going backwards and forth. It was just going backwards and forth from Common App to FAFSA, making sure they had this, making sure I have this correct. And then I couldn't find 1 year of my taxes. So I had to contact the IRS so that they could send it to me. And I'm like, I'm not going to have it done in time. I was a nervous wreck, because I wanted to make sure it was in by the deadline. But being that I had to contact the IRS so they could send me the information that I needed, I really didn't think I would have it in. But by the grace of God, it did come in. I was able to get everything in. So it's just a going backwards and forth. But I pretty much just let her sit with me while I handle everything. Because I try to tell her, God forbid something happens to me, right, you need to know how to do this. Right. Now, if you ask my husband, he don't know nothing. all he did was drive when we went to the fairs. He knows And he used to think all the time. He would say to me, "Oh, you're just overreactive for everything." You would say that because you're not going through the process with this girl. You're not helping her fill out college applications. You're not helping with these essays. You're not helping with FAFSA. He knows nothing. So I always had to try to make sure, just in case, God forbid, something happens to me, you need to know how to do this.
Right.
So this is how you learn. Sit with me and learn.
Right. Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Sutherland.
So there were 3 or 4 schools he did apply to that had the CSS profile.
Oh, yes.
And that one, I'm not as well versed because there was things I didn't recognize I had to do. And then we were, oh, wait. And then we were like, we got to go back in there and then add something else. And it was like, there's too many of these things. But again, I think it's a way to really to show will. If you really want to be in here, you will do your research, you'll find out, you'll figure out. So I think, for parents right now, especially it's October, at this point, you should have had all these background knowledge already, these keywords, these terminologies understood, because going into it right about as you're living it, you're applying what you know. And because those schools he applied to were not a part of the early action, when I recognized I had to do the CSS profile, it was in New Year. And I said, well, we already did all of these little things already. Why is the student profile portal not updating? And that's where you'll go in and check their information. And then I just noticed, I said, oh, it's not FAFSA that I need for this one, it's the CSS. So you also have to check to see what schools require versus one of the other. Mm-hmm. And there's a charge for one and charge not for the other. And I was like, well, what kind of caliber school are we looking at? What's the difference? Why do we want to do this? So I think it is a learning process. I would say start in 11th grade, start having these conversations so that during the summer before, you are ready and prepared to go off in September, because it allows you to be well knowledgeable of it. And you have to be able to identify the interest schools so that you know what their requirements are.
Yeah. Yes, and as it relates to those forms, FAFSA is totally free. Every school requires it, and you have to do it every year. CSS profile, there is a cost to it. So as a high school senior, the students, if say like with Graylin, you apply to 3 schools that require CSS profile, you have to put those schools' information into the form. But if he decides to not go to any CSS profile school, then you would never have to see that form again. Yes. So that's the beauty. And both of the forms have that tax data retrieval part where it will download your tax information for you, so you don't have to keep typing in what your gross was, your tax or whatever. So it kind of makes the process a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And then another difference with CSS is that the last question, you can actually write in like your family situation. Like you can write that, especially coming out of COVID, that your business was affected, or God forbid your health was affected, or related but not totally related. Say you've been caring for an elderly parent or relative. That's where you put that information into CSS, because for the most part, schools that use it have a lot more money in endowment. So they're asking for pretty much everything, as even like almost like what you have for breakfast the day before. They want to know everything, but you got to give a little to get a whole lot.
Yes.
So that's the part of it. Don't be afraid of the form. Just reach out to somebody who can help you. Mm-hmm. So ladies, I want to thank you for joining us on part 2 of Parents Have to Understand. So if there are any parting words or anything, any nuggets that came to mind that you want to share before we say goodbye to our lovely virtual audience.
Network. Show your child how to network, how to advocate for themselves, how to speak up, how to have a pitch, be ready to talk about themselves in the most positive way that gets someone to go, oh, I want to know more about you. I think once they have built that confidence in themselves, and you just step back and you just be amazed at your child and just see the potential and where they will go to next. And I think if you allow them to do that, then even if they fall down a little, it's good because they learn from it. They'll see why it's important to take it seriously. And be open-minded to different opportunities that they may have, that you might not have thought. You might not think 4-year. You may want to start 2-year, or you might do trade. What is this conversation about for your child to be successful in their future? And I think the earliest you start having those kind of conversation allows them to feel like they're being heard and trusted and valued. And then you'll get more of a partner that would be able to take more risk than wait for you to say, try. They will take the risk. And you just have to sit back on the ride and just hope that paid off. But all in all, just enjoy this process. At the end, it is a relief. They will hopefully find somewhere to go. And it's just a matter of finding the niche that makes them happy and prepared for whatever they need to do in their future. And you'll be thankful for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I would definitely say the same thing. I'm very big on being your child's biggest advocate. Be your child's biggest advocate, but also teach them how to advocate for themselves. Because once they get into college, mom, dad, guardian, it's not going to be there to advocate for them. I will if I have to, depending on what the situation is. But you have to teach them how to advocate for themselves, how to fight for themselves, how to not just take that one answer, push, probe, question, follow up. Very important, follow up. Always follow up, because those things are important with growing, just life skills, period. Not only just for college, even outside of college, those things are very, very important. I would also say just when it comes to the colleges, getting accepted to a college is one thing, but can you actually afford it? Mm-hmm. Don't look at a college for just the name of it. Can you really afford that college, especially if your child is not getting a scholarship? And even if they do get a scholarship, the portion that you have to pay, can you really afford it? Don't go on just the name, because in the long run, there's going to be bills that need to be paid. And if even come up with a strategy of how you're going to pay the monthly bills. If your child really wants to go to that school, then you're going to have to show me, what are you going to do to stay into that school? Because college scholarships don't stop just before you go to college. They continue on. My daughter just applied for a couple last week. Actually, she'll find out this weekend if she gets one at homecoming. They tell you during homecoming if you received a scholarship or not. So we'll find out this week if she received a particular scholarship that she applied for at Hampton. You want to stay at the school, you have the scholarship, but there's still X amount that we have to pay. Now let's see what you're going to do to help with that. I need to see that you're motivated. I need to see that you're still trying to, still applying for colleges. You're in now, let's stay in.
Right.
And let's still try to continue to get the help that you need to help mom and dad pay for it. So that's a really big thing, making sure that your kid is still applying for scholarships. It doesn't stop there. And making sure that you can actually afford the college. Don't send them there just for the name. Just to say that my child attends this particular prestigious college just because. Make sure you can afford it. The FAFSA. The FAFSA was supposed to be out in October. Just a reminder that it's coming out in December. I have to keep reminding myself because, of course, we have to continue to do it every year as well. So I have to keep reminding myself as well. December is FAFSA. December is FAFSA. So just remember that FAFSA has to be completed in December.
Yep.
I think that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, I started following FAFSA on Instagram just to make sure I'm not missing any notifications from them.
Okay.
Right.
But on that note, thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you hanging out with me again on a Wednesday night to talk with the families about your experience and how you survived it, and giving them some information, some real recent info. Like it can't get any better than this, you know?
Mm-mm.
Their children are freshmen right now, so there's nobody who has been any closer to this process than these two women. So I hope, parents, that you got information. If you joined us late, the broadcast will be available for review. And bring your notebook, take down notes, and just make sure that you are there to support your child in this process, because it is possible to be successful, but you have to have a plan and you have to work together. So thank you again, Ms. Shanta Campbell. Thank you, Ms. Philippa Sutherland, for being our guest for our 2 sessions on Parents Have to Understand the College Process. To NAAHP, our main partner, we thank you. And to Parent Matters, Golden V, and College Cafe, thank you also for helping us to continue empowering parents with the information to make their children successful in their college journey. So thank you all, and everyone have a great night. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, all.